Charlaine is a wonderful guest. She's been with us before, and I have a lot of respect for Charlaine and her work. She uses the unique Heart of Encouragement system of personalized coaching to help her clients as they identify life blocks that get in the way, obviously, and stop them from succeeding. She uses both cognitive theory and integrated intuition, and she listens to the resonance of her client's voice to identify hidden emotions, those stuck points, and giving voice to separated emotions that need to be reintegrated into healthier behaviors and choices. She's got many years of experience working with clients from all walks of life and different levels of trauma, and she has a very deep empathy for people and what they've experienced. If you would like to learn more about Charlaine, her website is charlainejones.com. That's charlainejones.com. I do recognize you. Check it out. There's some really great information and material there, and we're very happy to have Charlaine back with us. Well, Charlaine, good evening.
Hello, Steve. Very happy to be here with you all tonight.
It's wonderful to have you with us, Charlaine. Thank you for accepting our invitation to come back.
It's a beautiful day for us to have done it as well. This wonderful 12-12 energy.
Yes, 12-12-13. Well, Charlaine, my first question for you is actually about my understanding, because I've heard you refer in your work to the elders, and you use the term the grandmothers. And I wanted to ask you if you could explain to us what you mean when you refer to the elders and the grandmothers.
Yeah, sure. In my tradition, it is about following in the footsteps of those who come before us. And in particular, I am from a very matriarchal training and clan and just energy around us. And I follow a goddess path. And from that is the idea of the mother maiden crone. And the grandmothers in this are the ones who came through 70, 80 years ago and started changing what was happening on this planet. And they're the ones who held harmonic convergence, and they're the ones who were talking about Sedona before it was very popular, and they were the ones who traveled to sacred sites around the world. And then as I began to wake up, they were the ones who had written the books or were holding ceremonies and were, right now we have the internet and people can hear your all's radio shows, but before we had to find each other. And these are the women who held spaces for young women to show up and learn and ask questions. And I have a series of 70 and 80-year-olds in my life who have been strong, strong women of the light in lots of different traditions. So when I say grandmothers, it's not only in the astral and in the ancestors realm, it's also right here in this lifetime. And I travel with them and I hold ceremony with them, and I just learn by being in the presence of these great souls.
It's wonderful. I love the term women of the light. That's really
It's
great.
not a casual term for, as any of you all know, we work here as spiritual souls. We work very much for the advancement of humanity. And sometimes that is not as simple as it seems.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I know you do great work. You're definitely a woman of the light, Charlaine. And now we entitled the show Quantum Time.
Yes.
And
yes.
I wanted to ask you next to explain the concept of quantum time for our listeners, and for me, actually.
Okay.
I always learn from you, Charlaine. I learn lots of new things.
We have fun together, we do. So I want to take it from last year. We were holding the 12-21-12 gateway open and having all of this energy coming forward. And then we moved into this time of, and I use the analogy of a boat coming to rest, and there's all this jet wash that moves in behind it. And finally you land, at the dock and are ready to step off. So here in this next quantum time, 2013 was a null point year. It's that point of, it's like a zero. It's completed a cycle. It's come all the way around to rest. And so in quantum time, we had all the information about the Mayans. We had all the information about Hermetic astrology. We had numerology, but we really haven't talked about, what happened in 2013. 2013 in numerology had the resonance of a 6, and we get ready to go over into 2014 to a 7. So we have this energy progression. And so when I'm talking about quantum time, I'm not talking about the linear Georgian calendar. I'm talking about what happens in the universality of humanity here on this planet, and then the energy that's coming into us now because of the gateways that were opened. And they were opened by many, many of us, and many different traditions and generations, and learning. As I heard the introduction of your compatriots here, all of them come to this point through many different traditions.
Well, it's fascinating. I love the way you describe it, Charlaine. So I know that we've talked in the past about 2012 and that gateway. And I wanted to ask you if you could help us to understand what that shift and what 2013 has symbolized in terms of our individual lives and experiences of the year.
Yeah, I will address that, because for many of us, it was a year of, oh my God, why wasn't this easy? And there was this expectation, okay, we just got to get ourselves to this gateway. And I think it was an expectation that was set up. I mean, I've traveled a lot in and out of this country this year, and we talk about, when I'm in Europe, or when I'm, in Israel, or when we're in these different places, about what really shifted. And so in 2012, there was all these expectations of, okay, are we ready? Can we get ourselves there? It was like getting ready to go, okay, am I done with that? And what am I going to take with me? And are we really going to get there? And then 2013 was here about, well, did that come through or not? And did I really want that? So it was a year of introspection. And for a lot of us, I'm talking about my clients and then other people as I encountered them as I traveled, a lot of us, it was not an easy year. It was not a year of, oh, wow, whew, I'm done and now I can rest and let's go to the beach. It was a year of, wait, oh, that. And that could be huge and life-changing and life-shattering from those old paradigms. I think you and I talked about as we were doing the write-up for this of, what forced parameters were in place that said, when you get to the other side, are you really going to want those? But we held on to them so strongly and said, yeah, I've got to have that. I've got to have that. And then we get over here and go, why was that important?
Yeah, it's been almost a year of waking up, of putting things in their true perspective. I think that's my feeling about this year personally, but also what I've seen from many, many clients.
Yeah.
It's almost recalibrating.
Recalibrating is a great word, and then I get a little bit of a resonance around a true perspective. I know that when I was looking at things 10 years ago, I had no idea that I could imagine what we have now. So true is relative, and I'm going to feed that back to this aspect of quantum time. What is the resonance that we carry that opens our hearts to a trueness? What opens us to something that's calling us into this deeper space of heart resonance, rather than, I've got a very strong left brain, here, let's go out and find about this and all of that. But the left brain isn't what helps me the most with my clients. It's what helps me explain to them why they do what they do. But it's this heart space that's opened. And that's the piece that we moved through the gateway with. We moved into this connection of heart resonance and this deeper connection of self. And some people didn't. And that's what I'm talking about, the struggle of 2013. We've seen so much.
Oh, sure. Yes, for sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
For sure. Yeah. seen a lot of struggles in certain people. Well, Charlene, then tell us what the theme is for 2014, because obviously it's almost Christmas. We'll
Hmm.
be in the new year before we know it.
Hmm.
What's the theme? What should we expect? What should we be focusing on?
So if 2013 was a year of coming to rest, 2014 is picking your foot up and stepping on out into the light.
Yeah.
And it's stepping out in a way not of dun da da, I am Superwoman or Superman and I have arrived, but it's like blink. You use the word waking up. It's blinking your eyes, looking around, seeing where you've landed. And, for many of us, it's a lonely road. There's not many others standing here. In some communities, people are even afraid to even talk about what their skills are and what they know. And I mean, I'm blessed to have a really deep community around me. And it took a while to find that. And it took, and so that's what 2014 is about. It's again, it's a seven. It's a year of being out there and finding some of the other spiritual light as a lighthouse, being that beacon. And for some people, they don't want to be that really bright light, but their light is like a pilot light that has come on. And it sits there and it's beginning to warm them up and wake them up and move them forward.
Well, I know you've used the term shifting the field,
Mm-hmm.
and I've also heard you talk about the human resonance factor in the media, Charlene. So can you talk to us about shifting the field and the human resonance factor as well?
Yes, and a beautiful example of that is the world focus on Mandela's passing and the energy for many of us who were empaths, the grief that worked through the energy field all around the world. I don't know if you're on Facebook or if you're connected to people in different kind of places. We as a collective felt that even if you didn't know anything was happening. I had so many clients calling me in crisis going, what is going on? And, you can talk about what was happening in the sky. And I didn't even try to talk to them about that. I would say to them, look, we're all connected. And the passage of this great soul, it takes a moment. We pause as a people and as a human being race for each of us to test what the field feels like without the presence of this great soul. And from that, there's again, this pause and then a breath that reaches back to us and says, and you're still connected. And I don't know if that was specific enough to answer what you ask about, but it is that human resonance of us understanding not everybody's an empath, but we're all connected to something.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of astrology, and I often say to clients, there is this connection between the movement of the planets in our solar system and beyond, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
And well, that and what is occurring within each of us individually, we know for sure that the movement of the planets somehow describes what's occurring or what needs to occur within a person or within a nation or on the planet. So there's no doubt about our interconnectedness. And I also say to client Charlene that the weather here uh, is to be respected. We're living in this environment and we're connected with it. In other words, if a tornado blows through my town, it's going to affect me. I'm not separate from it. And astrology describes the weather above on the astral plane where our souls reside. So there's a definite interconnection. I like the way you've explained that. I know that when we talked in advance of the show, we spoke briefly about vortexes. And interestingly, I've been reading some fascinating books this week and read a lot about sunspots, which are vortexes. And I was reading about the pyramids, which apparently are built on vortexes in order to prevent more catastrophic occurrences on the planet. And we have vortexes within us as individuals, our chakras, etc. So, can you tell us a little bit about vortexes from your perspective, Charlaine, and quantum time?
Yeah. Going to make a little distinction. There's a difference between a portal and a vortex. Portals are something that we talk about. Oh, I go here and this happened and I stepped into a different realm. For me, in my training, a vortex is earth-centered. It's something that has an energy resonance that is in the physicality of the earth plane, and it is a generated space by something other than humanity. It doesn't mean that we can't open portals. We do all the time. That's a whole separate conversation. So I just want to make that clarity. And then when we talk about vortexes, we can talk about the sacred sites of the pyramids or Machu Picchu or some of the different pyramid sites all around the world. You can do the depth and the study about that. And from that is the connectedness from that galactic energy down to the earth energy. And it's the connection of earth to earth. And so when we do that and we talk about vortex energy, it's not energy of electricity like we see as we flip on a switch and see it in our houses. It's a manifestation of something, just like you talked about a sunspot. We can, on the physics realm, explain what that sunspot is, but we don't exactly know what it means to the sun because we're not in that center.
And so what it means to us individually as well.
Yes,
because of that interconnectedness.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it's that interconnectedness, and it's if we talk about, then add the layer here of quantum time, it's all happening simultaneously. And that's a big concept to wrap our brain around, but there is no past, present, and future. It's all happening here in this now of now moment. And in that now of now moment, there are these concentrated spaces. And we, in this language and this time, call that a vortex. And we need to be very, very careful about what inner doorways we open in ourselves. And so this is what I talk with you frequently about, having this open heart space. And it's not open, oh, I love everything in the universe, but it's much more that concentrated in center space of I am love, and I am connected to the love of the universe. And it's that law of flow. And I know I just gave you several terms and concepts there. So, let's talk about which direction you want to go there.
Well, I really, really took note of your term inner doorways, the inner doorways that we open and allow ourselves. And I'm very interested in how we manifest, alchemy, etc. So I'm interested to ask you to go into some more detail, Charlaine, on those inner doorways that we open.
Okay, and from that, again, here's the caveat, and it's the caveat of be careful what you ask for. Mm-hmm. And it's one of those kind of things, again, in your teaching, you talk about Hermetic astrology, and there's all this Hermetic learning. In the old lifetimes and in the old ways, we would have studied in the wisdom schools, the left and right eye of Horus, or in some of the other different traditions. Right now, we have access as a country and a people to something called the internet and a computer. We also have access to psychedelics, and not that they wasn't a part of traditions in old ways, but they were taught in reverence, and they were taught, again, in very controlled circumstances. So when I talk about inner doorways, I'm talking about that psychic access and essence of who you are that's in the light. And it's in a way and a resonance that carries the signature of the truest piece of you that's part of your soul that's connected to the greater soul. And when we're in that connection, the flow has this higher resonance, And it's not higher as in 5 stories up. It's just if you listen to the frequency, it's not a low sound. It's very much a higher resonance and a frequency that has distance and time and space in it, because we as human beings think in a linear fashion.
Yeah, we do, for sure. And the concept of quantum time, that everything is occurring now, it really just completely blows away that whole feeling of linear time, that we're moving from A to B to C, etc., or that things take time.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the funny thing. We can only think of the little children who are waiting for Christmas to be here, and they're like, oh, it's never going to pass, never going to pass. And for us, when we're out here going, oh, my Lord, I've got to get this done because I've got to go to that next place, time is nothing. You look up and hours are gone.
Yes.
So I'm actually talking about it at a different level, on the quantum time level, about what's that resonance, what's that heart call that gets you from 5 years ago when you didn't know anything about being in the United States to 10 years from now when you've traveled the world. It's that piece of you, that future self of you, who understands your next step. And that's the doorway that I'm talking about. And we have lots of traditions. I'm not going to say that they don't exist out there. They do. Buddha studies, Sikh studies, Whirling Dervish, just picks different kind of traditions. All of them speak consistently about you have to go inside. There's this inner space. And once we begin to open those doorways, some of the rest of these things begin to manifest, not really as a side effect, but at the same time, because we are connecting to something that already exists. Do you follow that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. I want to ask you about crystal children as well, Charlaine, because you were explaining to me a week or two ago that there are some very new energies and entities arriving on the planet, and you used the term crystal children, which I've heard before. But how do they differ from us in terms of their inner space?
Sure. And again, I'm going to go back and give you the context. The elders that came through, the term that's used is called bridges of swords. They're the ones who came through and opened doorways. They were the first ones here. They were the one who said, no, that's not right. I mean, that's when we had civil changes. That's when we had protests. That's when we had, not just here in this country, but around the world. We're a next wave. We're bridges of light. We're the ones who were taking what they had started to create and go, oh yeah, sure, I can go to college and find this information, or sure, we can go get on a plane and in 12 hours be, halfway around, not around the world, but around the country, or even in a different country. That didn't exist for them. And then it's the next children, it's the 20-year-olds who are having, it's 20 to 40-year-olds. Some of my friends are in their late 30s and 40s having babies. They're the ones who are bringing in, because each of us have done our own work, we're now bringing our resonance up. They're bringing in this new energy in children. And when you and I were talking about this, I'm talking about when you look at some children, you go, oh, you are such an old soul. I've known you many different times. These new children, when you look at them, they don't know those rules, and they're beautiful, and they have just this sparkle energy around them. And that sparkleness is because they just don't have that resonance that says, I'm going to struggle. Some of my friends with their children right now, they just are so happy.
So there is a shift in consciousness because these children are not expecting scarcity or.
I'm going on because, each generation, if they can, want the lives of their children to be better than what they had. For example, in my life, I have nieces and nephew who were out of the country on cruises by the time they were 9, 10, and 11. In my childhood, when I was 9, 10, 11, we went to Disney World, right? And so some of
I
this,
went to
but
St.
there was,
Gothlin,
and that
which was
tells us.
about 20 miles down the road, I think.
So how do you get where you are right now? It's just an example of a physical shift, but there were always, even in the Depression, there were Rockefellers, right? There's always been this next wave that's here, but because we are doing our work, because we have opened our hearts in a particular way, that group, this young group that are coming, and they're 6 and under. There might be a few that are older than that, because surely you're going to hear from your clients and from the people who call in tonight. They have those kids, and these kids are they're going to be the ones who invent whatever the inheritor to the computer is, or to the iPhone. They just have this skill and knowingness about themselves that I can go back and study all that I want to, and it's never going to be a part of the ease that they're just born with.
Yeah, they're just born with a different energy completely.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes, again, I talk about traveling, but you could do it at the mall. You could be walking around and looking at kids and go, "Hi, welcome to Earth. You're going to have fun here."
And you were saying to me before, Charlaine, that they haven't been here before. They haven't necessarily lived, they're not necessarily reincarnating here. Mm-mm. They haven't been to Earth before.
Mm-mm. That is my understanding, and is my training and teaching. I mean, obviously, I can't go up to each of them and say, "Oh, look, when was the last time you were on Earth?" "Oh, 100 million years ago," or we don't think in linear time. What I get told frequently is the piece of, "We don't have time. We can't give you the context. We don't speak like that." And we hear that in Abraham's work with Esther Hicks, and we hear that from some of the other channelers. We hear that consistently of, "Why are you worried about that? You have everything that you need. You're here in love." So as that collective starts to show up on the planet, they also come in connected to that resonance, and they're connected to that understanding that everything that they need is here. Now, let me give the other piece. That doesn't mean that they don't have to learn to be in a physical body. They do. And we see that sometimes the younger kids sometimes are very clumsy until they figure it out, and it's like you can watch them play with their hands. Steve, I don't know how much you've been around babies, but babies are always very tactile, reaching and touching and grasping and looking. These children seem to take an extra bit of time to study their hands and to look at things, and that was the example that I gave you of there's just in wonder and awe of, "Ooh, if I do this, my finger moves." Every parent who just heard that laughs and go, "Yeah, I know what you mean." And all the rest of us, you're going, "Okay, I hope I know what she's talking about."
No, I love it. I always love listening to you, Charlaine, and I always find that you share things with me that I haven't heard anywhere else. And I'm somebody that reads a lot. I read and research a lot, but I always hear something different from you. You always stretch my mindset and expand my paradigm. Well, Charlaine, we're going to take a short break.
Sure.
But after that, we're going to talk about the spiritual law of flow. And we'll be back shortly.
A new era in psychic services has begun. PsychicAccess.com. You can connect with our psychic advisors by telephone or chat 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. All of our psychic advisors are interviewed, fully verified, and accuracy tested, assuring you quality service. We're living in some very troubled times right now. More and more, the world's problems are affecting us on a personal level. You don't have to deal with this alone. Our highly accurate psychics, caring advisors, and talented mediums can help with situations you are currently experiencing and can let you know what the future may hold for you. All new customers get a free 6-minute reading. All you have to do is register. Why not visit us now and get a free reading at psychicaccess.com.
Well, welcome back, Charlaine. I want to ask you to share with us the concept of the spiritual law of flow.
Mm-hmm. You know, most of the information that's out there is about the law of attraction, and we talk about Tehote and the emerald tablets, and again, we go back to the wisdom schools and Hermetic teachings and the ancient wisdoms, and again, I go back to my galactic understanding and energy understanding of everything is connected. There is this piece of flow, and it's PACE, of flow. And there are moments when you just know that you're connected. And the next piece is as simple as breathing. And then there's other times when you're just like, what just happened? Nothing's going right. It's all kind of fractured and disjangled, and a piece here and a piece there. And so if it's something as simple as pausing and taking a breath and coming back into your heart center. And so when I talk about the law of flow, it is a higher concept again, and again, not higher as in 1, 2, 3, but higher as in frequency. And if you had somebody who was an engineer or a physicist on here, they could talk about the hertz and the resonance and the polarity of all of that. But what I'm talking about is connectivity with the energy of rightness, and it's right time and right action. And it's not as in right and wrong or left and right. That's polarity. So in the law of flow, great example that many of us will understand is you go up to a red light and you either make a turn left at this light or you go down 2 and you make a left at the next light. And you just pause a minute and something says, okay, take a left here. And you hear a wreck in about 3 seconds or something. And you would have been down there when that happened. That's that piece of listening to the flow and turning the way you need to. Going back to children, there's not a parent alive that suddenly get this feeling to, oh, wow, I need to go check on my child in the other room because we don't know why. You just go and check the other room. That's that pull piece. That's that tug that says your attention is needed. So taking that basic concept, I'm then building on it and bringing it up to the next level of the law of flow of connection. And then you talked about manifestation. You bring it on up to the next piece. So micro, meso, macro. You bring it on up to the macro level. And when we start manifesting there, it's about the highest blessing and the highest frequency and the highest light, Light. And so when we're in this higher resonance of the law of flow, it's as simple as breathing and being connected. And the more that you turn toward that, the more that you start listening to those subtle movements. I don't pretend to say that I have it mastered, nor do I pretend to say that it's easy. Because our chaos minds, our left brain minds, our ego minds go, well, that didn't just happen. And you get home and you say to people, oh my gosh, the weirdest thing just happened to me today. If I had just kept going, I'd have been in a car wreck. And so there's those different levels of flow and connectivity. And when you open to this heart space, when you open to your inner knowingness and you open to the call of the universe, that's when that flow can begin to build. And it starts sometimes as a single drop of rain, and then it sounds like a little bit more, and then it's a stream, and then it's a babbling brook, and sometimes it can be a rushing river, and you're like, woo, I don't want that. And sometimes it's as big as the ocean, and you just are it. And sometimes you are all the way connected, and you don't need to do anything. You just be it.
I remember going into meditation once, and I was in a lecture theatre in the meditation, and I was listening to a wise one speaking to all of the people there, and a lady put her hand up and he said, "Yes, madam, if you have a question, I'll be happy to answer it." And she said, "How do you find something?" And he said, "It's very easy, madam, never look for it."
That's exactly it. You were very simple. You answered the question in 2 words.
Yeah,
Never
don't look for it. Don't look for
Yeah.
it. Release, enjoy, be now. But I wanted to say to you, Charlaine, that I was taught that when we leave the physical world, when we leave behind this physical body, this shell, this tool that we must have in this physical environment, we leave and we revert to the astral plane, and we work our way above that eventually. But it's all telepathic. The communication is telepathic. Any movement is telekinetic. So I was taught, learn as much as you can about telepathy, psychic ability, sensitivity, intuition, making things happen with your mind, manifestation, telekinesis, because when you leave the physical world, that's what you'll be working with.
Okay, so I'm going to be me and ask you, what are you really asking there? Because in quantum time, it's all happening at the same time. In that space, you are telekinetic, you are connected, you
That's
are
true.
all of that, and so are you asking me about being earthed on Earth in a physical body and what we are to bring here? Or, see, I don't make a distinction between what you just asked. Maybe that's the way for me to answer your question.
Yeah, well, I think what I want to ask you is, I know that we're present on the astral plane, that
Yes.
we are already there.
Yes.
I know that's where the soul resides, but we're also having this physical human experience. How can we make most use of telepathy, telekinesis, alchemy, manifestation in our experience now of this physical plane?
Okay. And so, again, in answering your question, it is this idea of separateness. Each of those labels that you just said and put on there is in a linear way for you to understand that that's your next progression to practice and experience it. Again, I would say to you that you've had moments of those happening in your life when you look and went, "What just happened? How do I know that?" Or something missing, and you know that you know where it is, and you finally just give up and say, "Okay, I know this here is here," and you walk back and it's laying on the kitchen table. It's pulling things through those time and space quadrants. And again, that's a whole nother show. But when we're here, and I'm touching my heart, when we're here in this space, in this now of this body, when we're in this space, as of, 8:42 on 12/12/13 p.m. Eastern, that creates its own resonance. And I'm suggesting that you could do a future regression and say, okay, 10 years from now, when I look back to this point in time, what can I send back to them so that they're connected easier? Because I would believe at another point in time, you look back on your history and I look back on my history, and I send such love to that child at that moment. They don't know what they're feeling, but they're experiencing that upwelling of light. And redirect me, I'm not exactly sure I'm answering your question. And it may be a fundamental difference. You're looking at it from one side and I'm looking at it from another side. Steve, are you there?
Yeah,
Steve, where are you?
I am here. Sorry, I was.
He was like he was in la la. Very
I was,
intense.
I was babbling away like that babbling brook. but
You
on
just went out
mute.
into a different one. There you go. Steve went into the future and called himself backwards.
Well, I no, you're definitely answering my question, but I I guess what I'm saying is, how can we make things happen now
You
in the
can't make
physical
anything
world?
happen now. There's no
Yeah.
making things happen. There isn't a point of allowing. Making things happen is, sorry, I just got passionate about that. Let me take a breath. Making things happen is a left brain, ego driven demand. I can get in that space and make things happen, and people are housed and people are fed, and my clients are wonderful, and I'm exhausted. It's using the energy in a way that is detrimental to me. This is that law of flow and the peace, PEACE, of allowing. And I'm not, Steve, you know me, I'm not some kind of big, massive spiritual guru that goes up and sits on, and spends my whole life in meditation. And it's not a bad thing. I just happen to not choose that in this lifetime. I live here and walk around in this world. And making things happen is not manifestation. It's ego driven.
So we shouldn't try.
Well, isn't that the example that you gave of the man on the stage saying to her, "Madam, stop looking"?
Don't look. Yeah. So do you believe then that we really should just be focused on this moment now?
Well, if
trust.
I think that was easy and that was something that was available, the conversation here would be totally different. I think that that's part of the progression and the learning of what's mine to do and what different than what's my responsibility. And I'm using language here in a way that may have a different context for a lot of people. Eckhart Tolle is one of the ones that's out there in a very famous way about the power of now and being in this moment and only having this breath. However, he was homeless on a park bench for 2 years. Most of us don't want to do that. Most of us are here in the everyday context of living and working and turning on our lights and paying our bills. In that space, it's taking that breath and that moment of space to say, I matter, and what's my next step? And listening at that deep level, listening at that subtle level for what is that next step. And sometimes that next step is to let a whole lot of things go. And then we grieve it. I mean, that's what 2013, I'm circling all the way back to the beginning now. 2013 for a lot of people has been letting things go that we thought we would never want to let go. And I'm including myself in that.
Yeah, like I can certainly include myself in that, Charlaine. I've made decisions this year that needed to be made, but that I just egotistically couldn't make before. And this year, my priorities just feel very different.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They really do.
And in the finding out that those priorities feel very different, there's energy that's freed up. There's a space in you that's freed up. It doesn't mean that it doesn't hurt like hell. It did. And it doesn't mean that the growth was easy. It wasn't. And the evolution, because I set intention, inner intention, and gave attention to it. I put my focus and I put my strength to it. And it's not muscle strength. It's like, okay, I'm going to be still and really listen here. And it was not easy. You've been a part of that progression. You know firsthand, it was not easy. And I would challenge any of the people, who are listening here and talking about this, tell me when it was easy. Wasn't.
It's funny because there was a moment, me, I'm always busy doing this and that. And there was a moment this morning when my guide said, just sit still. Mm-hmm. And I almost felt, well, to do what? And he said, just listen. Yeah. And I sat here and I wasn't listening with my ears. Mm-mm. I sat here and I was just listening to what I sense as I just gaze out of the window. Mm-hmm. Listening to what's important to me, what's important now. And it was very peaceful, but very powerful.
Mm-hmm. it's that depth of resonance that I'm talking about. From that space of connectedness and that peacefulness, the next step, the next decision, the next movement isn't simple. And yet it's there. It carries its own tone. And again, I talk about the things that we laid down in 2013. Some of them I've carried for the longest of time and wanted and thought that that was the most important thing. And oh my God, I was going to die if I didn't have it. It's no longer important. The priorities have shifted. They just have. And the next moment they shifted again.
How do you feel that the shift in energy, the shift in priorities manifests itself in the world more generally, so politically or economically, for example?
I think that's the part of the awakening and the awareness of people looking up and blinking around. We're doing it. I use the thing, micro, meso, macro. People right now, because we have access to information to know what's happening in other countries, we pick up, okay, why did that show up in the media and not that? Mm-hmm. Why did
particularly in the US, Charlaine?
Particularly, you and I talk about that frequently.
The media in the US has its hands over its ears, or pretends to. And I read things that go on in the world and they don't get mentioned in the US.
Yeah, see, that's the piece about PIECE, about what do you want to know? Go out there and seek and dig for it. And there's always someone who knows. Now, they can be small, quiet voices, particularly given the access that we have on the internet. We're not in countries where it's censored. You can go out and look for different kind of things. There's always someone writing about it. There's videos, there's YouTubes, there's radio shows. There's always someone out there speaking about this in a way that opens the next doorway, right? How do we know about Mandela? How do we know about him?
It's interesting because there seems to be this shift away from mainstream media to more personalized, real media.
I think that's, again, you and I talk about the level of connectedness, right? You have people that are connected to you around the world. I have people that are connected around the world. If we want to know something because of technology right now, we can hype on the internet or go on Facebook, or, you can pick up the phone if people still actually have phones in their houses and call them. And in that, you have a personal human-to-human connection. And in that connectedness, we have this ability to say, okay, what is true here for me? So you said earlier, what's the real truth? And the answer is it's relative. It's relative to the context and the information and the education that you have about it. What's so different about now is we have the potential to find out so much more than we ever had before. We don't have to go spend a whole lifetime in a wisdom school clustered away from everybody else. We can have this radio show and introduce so many topics that people's heads are spinning and going, what'd she say? We have this opportunity that exists because we are here at this planet in this time and in this way. And
well, Charlaine, I always love talking to you, and I'm going to have to listen to the interview a couple of times because there's so much to think about. I want to ask you, though, what do you have planned for in terms of your activities, your professional activities? How can we find out more about you, your work, and what you've got on offer in 2014?
Yeah, I'm going to continue to be traveling in 2014. There's a trip to Germany. There's a trip to South Africa. There are places where we're going to be at sacred sites. I've talked with several different people about holding women's retreats here in the sacredness of the Smoky Mountains. Some of that is going to be based on a travel schedule. I have plane tickets to New Hampshire and other things happening already. For me, that seven energy and the spiritual warrior of light energy that's happening next year is about being moved around the planet and help clearing some of these blocked energies. There's no right or wrong. Everything is good, and there's something about the energy that I'm holding that is to get in front of people and say to them, "You're okay. You're not going crazy. This is actually what's happening, and here's why." And because I have that talent and that connected and that understandingness, moving around the world, I mean, I just need a plane ticket and an invitation. Off we go. Because there's this connectedness that's happening more than just, oh, there's a small group of us and we're going to meet at our house every Saturday morning. Mm-hmm. That was important. We did that. Now it's time to take it in different places.
Now the world is open.
Yeah. And
exciting.
So at other times it would have been, okay, we're going to take a trip to the sacred sites of Ireland or to the Middle East or to Australia, or now we go different places. I mean, I've slept on the floor in lots of different countries and been in people's houses where the best that they offered me was things here in the America people won't even know about. I've been in the Arctic Circle. I've been lots of different places. And every place I'm connected to a human being who loves where they are. They have so many things they want to show me. So earlier you asked to tell you about the elders and that circle of grandmothers. It's just that, Steve. It's taking what we know and mentoring it and offering it out in that beautiful, loving, connected way.
Well, Charlaine, it's been wonderful to have you with us again. I want to thank you, and all of our listeners will be able to listen to the interview again on iTunes or through the Psychic Access Talk Radio website. And we'll be following and listening to what you're up to next year, Charlaine. I would love you to come back next year and tell us more about what you discover and have to share as you move through your travels in 2014.
I'm sure it'll be exciting. You'll hear about it, I know.
Great. Thank you once again for joining us. Thank you, Charlaine. Great.
Hello, my name is Rez Miranda. If you're having relationship, career, or life issues, I'm inviting you to experience what it's like to have access to professional, highly accurate psychics and spiritual advisors you can trust to care and help you. Register now to get your free 6-minute reading by telephone or chat. Get answers. Get access. Psychic Access. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. PsychicAccess.com.
Generations and learning, as I heard the introduction of your compatriots here, all of them come to this point through many different traditions.
Well, it's fascinating. I love the way you describe it, Charlaine. So I know that we've talked in the past about 2012 and that gateway, and I wanted to ask you if you could help us to understand what that shift and what 2013 has symbolized in terms of our individual lives and experiences of the year.
Yeah, I will address that because for many of us, it was a year of, oh my God, why wasn't this easy? And there was this expectation, okay, we just got to get ourselves to this gateway. And I think it was an expectation that was set up. I mean, I've traveled a lot in and out of this country this year, and we talk about when I'm in Europe or when I'm, in Israel or when we're in these different places about what really shifted. And so in 2012, there was all these expectations of, okay, are we ready? Can we get ourselves there? It was like getting ready to go, okay, am I done with that? And what am I going to take with me? And are we really going to get there? And then 2013 was here.
Charlaine is a wonderful guest. She's been with us before, and I have a lot of respect for Charlaine and her work. She uses the unique Heart of Encouragement system of personalized coaching to help her clients as they identify life blocks that get in the way, obviously, and stop them from succeeding. She uses both cognitive theory and integrated intuition. and she listens to the resonance of her client's voice to identify hidden emotions, those stuck points, and giving voice to separated emotions that need to be reintegrated into healthier behaviors and choices. She's got many years of experience working with clients from all walks of life and different levels of trauma, and she has a very deep empathy for people and what they've experienced. If you would like to learn more about Charlaine, her website is charlainejones.com. That's charlainejones.com. I do recognize you. Check it out. There's some really great information and material there, and we're very happy to have Charlaine back with us. Well, Charlaine, good evening.
Hello, Steve. Very happy to be here with you all tonight.
It's wonderful to have you with us, Charlaine. Thank you for accepting our invitation to come back.
It's a beautiful day for us to have done it as well, this wonderful 12-12 energy.
Yes, 12-12-13. Well, Charlaine, my first question for you is actually about my understanding, because I've heard you refer in your work to the elders, and you use the term the grandmothers. And I wanted to ask you if you could explain to us what you mean when you refer to the elders and the grandmothers.
Yeah, sure. In my tradition, it is about following in the footsteps of those who come before us. And in particular, I am from a very matriarchal training and clan and just energy around us. And I follow a goddess path. And from that is the idea of the mother maiden crone. And the grandmothers in this are the ones who came through 70, 80 years ago and started changing what was happening on this planet. And they're the ones who held harmonic convergence, and they're the ones who were talking about Sedona before it was very popular, and they were the ones who traveled to sacred sites around the world. And then as I began to wake up, they were the ones who had written the books or were holding ceremonies and were, right now we have the internet and people can hear your all's radio shows, but together we do. So I want to take it from last year. We were holding the 12-21-12 gateway open and having all of this energy coming forward. And then we moved into this time of, and I use the analogy of a boat coming to rest, and there's all this jet wash that moves in behind it. And finally you land, at the dock and are ready to step off. So here in this next quantum time, 2013 was a null point year. It's that point of, it's like a zero. It's completed a cycle. It's come all the way around to rest. And so in quantum time, we had all the information about the Mayans. We had all the information about Hermetic astrology. We had numerology, but we really haven't talked about, what happened in 2013. 2013 in numerology had the resonance of a 6. And we get ready to go over into 2014 to a 7. So we have this energy progression. And so when I'm talking about quantum time, I'm not talking about the linear Georgian calendar. I'm talking about what happens in the universality of humanity here on this planet, and then the energy that's coming into us now because of the gateways that were opened. And they were opened by many, many of us and many different traditions. And before, we had to find each other. And these are the women who held spaces for young women to show up and learn and ask questions. And I have a series of 70 and 80-year-olds in my life who have been strong, strong women of the light in lots of different traditions. So when I say grandmothers, it's not only in the astral and in the ancestors realm, it's also right here in this lifetime. And I travel with them and I hold ceremony with them, and I just learn by being in the presence of these great souls.
It's wonderful. I love the term women of the light.
Mm-hmm.
That's really
it's
great.
not a casual term for, as any of you all know, we work here as spiritual souls. We work very much for the advancement of humanity. And sometimes that is not as simple as it seems.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I know you do great work. You're definitely a woman of the light, Charlaine. And now we entitled the show Quantum Time.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I wanted to ask you next to explain the concept of quantum time for our listeners and for me, actually.
Okay.
I always learn from you, Charlaine. I learn lots of new things.
We have fun.